Hey guys, Raphael here, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Did you say podcast? Dudes, dudettes, you're listening to a podcast on the Geekcast Radio Network.
Oh my gosh, this is so great.
Welcome to The Pullbags Origins Episodes. Join TFG1 Mike as he grills this week's guest on just how they got into reading comics and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy The Pullbag.
Hello and welcome to The Pullbag. This is yet again another Origins episode. This is the first Origins episode of the new year, 2015. Happy New Year, everybody. Last week we had Jeremy Fine and I talking about Dark Horse Comics series Tomb Raider, written by Gail Simone. Spoiler alert, we did not give it that great of a review. And next week, which I should probably say this at the end of the show, but next week, Ada S. Barron will return with me to talk more Masters of the Universe. We're going to wrap up the 2013 ongoing... Are you done? Okay, shut up. We're going to wrap up the 2013 ongoing coverage for DC Comics series, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, with issues 13 to 19. 13 to 18 of that is the Blood of Grayskull storyline, and then 19, which is so funny because we were talking about this just before we started this recording. Issue 19 of Masters of the Universe, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe 2013, is basically what if He-Man was Simba, Randor was Mufasa, and Keldor was Scar. I swear to God, issue 19 of the 2013 ongoing for He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is what if the Lion King was set on Eternia? So, as you can hear in the background, I have someone with me that normally hates, does not want to do them, comes kicking and screaming. He's the worst podcasting diva I have ever encountered.
Diva?
That's right. We have Mr. Optibotimus. Hello, sir.
Greetings and salutations.
Yes. You should have gone with the Peter Nickel, I am Vigo, or somehow I am Optibotimus, or something like that.
Optibotimus?
Yeah, I don't know. Something like that. But people might be like, whoa, wait, what is Optibotimus doing on a comic podcast?
No. It's strange.
So for those of you who don't know, the Origins episode are basically me. It's basically me getting together with friends of mine or people that I find interesting that I want to talk to and find out how they either got into reading or out of reading comic books, or have general opinions or thoughts on the comic industry, or are just getting into it to collect the old stuff that they miss, which is kind of where you fall in.
There's a little bit of that, yeah.
So is there, I start off every episode with this question, is there a person in your life as a child, your mom, grandparent, whatever, was there somebody that said, here kid, here's a comic, go away, you bother me? Was there somebody that really introduced you to reading comics as a child?
Not really. My mom was a very big reader. The problem though is there are books that you would not want a kid to read.
Like Stephen King.
No. Like Harlequin romance.
Oh jeez.
Books. Affectionately dubbed by me, my sister, my wife, and everybody else as female porn. It's
smut.
It is.
Smut.
It is. I don't want to offend because a very good friend of ours, Bob Gilmer, his wife, writes things like that, and she's actually, and I have to give her props. She's on the New York Times bestseller list. So she is. She's. Oh, I'm killing TFG on Mike over there. So I don't want to offend or anything, but that's what she does. So it wasn't anything that it was, here, read this. It was just reading was something that was pretty important to do, and to this day it still is. Kids should read, obviously. Nowadays they're reading things on their tablets and smartphones and devices and not so much books anymore, but they're still reading. But the biggest influence for me came in the fact that my parents had a restaurant in a town, and it was 2 or 3 blocks from the restaurant was a hobby shop. Uh-huh. And my sister and I, when we would be in the restaurant, we'd be bored out of our minds. So we would walk down to this hobby shop and check it out. And that was in the early 90s. And going in there, we saw a whole bunch of stuff. I remember the place, it was like a big, like, model train thing. He had like a butt ton of that kind of stuff in there. But he also had comics, and it's funny because I can very clearly close my eyes and I can picture exactly how the store looked. And it was a giant cluster inside there. It's like there was hardly any room to walk. There were narrow aisles that you had to kind of squeeze through to get anywhere. And he had a bunch of like just boxes full of comic books, some on a newsstand kind of thing. And that's where I got my first taste of comic books, was going to this hobby shop. And I know the name of it. I'm not going to say it because I don't want anybody to look it up, and I don't want anybody to find out roughly where I lived as a kid. But I still remember the name of the place. I still remember the guy. He used to have like this old dog that was in the shop all the time. And it was a quaint little place. I mean, the town that I grew up in was really small. But it wasn't the town the town that I grew up in was really small, but this was the town next doors to it, and it was actually a little bit bigger. This was a place, our town had nothing in there. Like, literally nothing. Our town was like Radiator Springs. We had one traffic light that just blinked all the time, and so the town next to us is where you wanted to go. That's the place that had the Kmart. They had all the fast food places like McDonald's and Burger King. So if you wanted anything, you had to drive 6 miles to go to a Burger King or go to Kmart or something like that. But when we went on a trip, that's where we went. We went to this town, and that was my first kind of experience with comic books and collectibles, I should say.
All right. All right. Since you mentioned it, all as I can really think of now is you and your wife are Riggs and Riggs and Lorna, and Bob and Candace are Murtaugh and Trish. Because all as I'm flashing to right now is the scene on the beach where Lorna says, "Check out this page number," and Riggs is like, "How do you read this smut?" Anyway,
hey, I'm not gonna knock it. It's
no, I know.
Amongst
it's the only thing I can flash to, and I'm not mocking it either. I think it's hilarious. All right, so as a child, what were you reading? Were you reading Marvel? Were you reading DC? Did you gravitate towards certain heroes, certain villains? How did that go?
Well, the first. Again, it was the same comic shop, and I remember going in there, and it was, I want to say, oh God, I know it was 1992, but I want to say that it was like the fall, because I remember it being fairly coldish, but it was around, or maybe, well, no, it was like summer of 92, towards the end of summer of 92, and there was he had advertisements in his shop about Superman dying. And
oh yeah, Superman 75. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the big thing. And up until then, I don't remember buying much stuff. I just kind of lurked in his store. But that was when I was like, and that's when they started doing the pull bag thing. Where the comic book shop would pull certain issues if you signed up for it. And then they would put them in a box for you, and then you'd go in and you buy them all at one time or whatever. So I signed up for that to get the Superman ones, and that was my first and that's kind of a bad one to start off with because it kind of like demoralizes you for the future of comic books, I guess, because it's morbid, but
it's basically what if it's kind of similar to the whole phenomenon. Michael Bay has ruined our childhood.
Yeah. So
It's like if you start as a 14-year-old kid reading
Right.
Superman is dead, then
It's
it can only go up from here.
It really jacks you up. But that was the first pull for me, and the death of Superman really, and to this day I still have them in a box here in my closet, and they're the original ones. I never got like the special one or anything. I think my Superman 75 is the third printing, so it's nothing spectacular or anything like that. But and back then it wasn't. I wasn't doing this to collect these. I was just reading them, and I kept them. And I mean, obviously they're bagged and boarded, but they're probably nothing to this day that I would want to send out to get graded because it would probably disappoint me. But the death of Superman, that was it, and so that's DC, and that's really what kind of grabbed me. And then I want to say, and then that spanned over a whole year, it seemed, or half a year, where there was the death of Superman. Then right after that, there was Funeral for a Friend. And then after that was the Reign of Superman, where they introduced 4 new characters as, well, not all new, but they introduced 4 people as the replacements for Superman. And that went on for a while. But that whole thing, it was just a huge media event with the death of Superman. It was gigantic. I mean, I remember the things on the news, and comic book sales went through the roof at that point in time. But that last
other than Batman, Tim Burton's Batman coming out in '89.
Yeah.
That's real. Like, other than that huge news, the only thing, like, in today's terms of geek stuff, or geek stuff actually getting on, actual news broadcast, Death of Superman is the one thing I can think of besides Batman '89 of actually making waves and them reporting this and whatever else.
Right. And it's the '89 Batman has always been one of my favorite versions of Batman, but it never really dragged me into the comic book world. Obviously, I knew about Batman at that point in time, but I didn't read the books or anything. But around the time where Superman came back to life, that's a whole nother snafu. But around that time was when Batman decided to have their big thing, and that was the Nightfall series, where Batman had his back broken by Bane. So that was another one that dragged me in, and I'm so when it comes to, so I'm trying to remember your original question, which I do badly.
Marvel, DC, who do you prefer?
Yeah, it started out really as DC. Those were the big headliners at the time. But then around the same time, around 93 or something like that, that's when the X-Men animated series was on, and several key issues of X-Men came out with it was Fatal Attractions, where Wolverine had his adamantium pulled out, Magneto had his brain wiped out and put into a coma by Professor X. So it was one of those. So then after Batman, I was like, the next big thing was Marvel. It's like Marvel had to come up with something because DC was hitting all these home runs. So Marvel comes out with this big shocker that Wolverine's going to have his adamantium ripped out by Magneto. And I'm like, ooh, what's going on there? So I went over, started reading that stuff. So there was never it started with DC, but there was never a real preference. It was, and to this day, it's still like this with any movies and anything like that. Are the stories good? I don't care if it's Superman, I don't care if it's Batman or if it's X-Men, whatever. Are the stories good? Can I be entertained by what they're telling me in it? And So I've never been a hardcore DC all the way, man, or Marvel's it for me. It's never been like that with me. It's where can like I be entertained the most, and that was the beginning of the end.
So, as you're growing up, did you fall out of reading comics at some point?
Well,
or
I mean, what was I'm trying to. If I go back over to my box, I can show you where I was. What my last comics that I collected were probably around the time of Age of Apocalypse. So now, then that came out. When was that? I don't even know what year that was. I'm gonna look it up. Age of Apocalypse. Yeah, that was 95, 96. So through that span, you had. So I started probably collecting my collecting life for comics. You can really narrow it down to from like 92 to 96.
Holy crap!
I mean, you can. It's not very long. It really isn't. But in that time, there was a lot of huge moments in the comic book. I mean, we joked about the snafu about bringing Superman back to life, and it's now basically become a joke that if you die in comics, you're not going to be dead for long. And one of the biggest I remember as more of an adult reading that a lot of people didn't like was Superman wasn't even dead for like a half a year. I mean, he came back pretty quick, and a lot of people felt ripped off because that it was just a publicity stunt. And same kind of thing with Batman. He had his back broke, and I mean, obviously that's not as catastrophic as dying, but I mean, he came back and he was fine.
When it's Bane, yeah, but when it's Bane breaking your back, that's pretty catastrophic.
No, it is. I mean, there was. It was that storyline might be one of my favorites, honestly, because it was a very psychological kind of thriller sort of thing that I really did enjoy. But yeah, Age of Apocalypse happened around 95, 96, and that was when I was going into my senior year of high school. So I, at that time, just didn't really care that much. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm trying to think. There's another saga. Oh, what the hell is this? That's not one of the comics. Right, let's see. 0 Hour. There it is. Oh no, yeah, that was 94. So yeah, and then in 1994, right before the Age of Apocalypse, DC had their 0 Hour Crisis in Time series, which was basically it was all being screwed up by Hal Jordan, where the universe was deleting itself, and everybody was disappearing and dying. I mean, it was all kind of crazy. He went nuts because of the destruction of Coast City in the reign of Superman. So it was all kind of interconnected and everything, but the Age of Apocalypse was about the end for me. So very, very ironic that the end of my comic collecting is with something called Apocalypse. It's funny.
But in between that time and outside of Marvel and DC, you were also reading about the Fab Four Shellheads, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I mean the Ninja Turtles. I mean that was honestly, I really during that time. I mean the Eastman and Laird comics, were in the 80s, and I didn't get into comic books then, and I honestly didn't even know about them as comic books at that time. I thought they were a cartoon. I that's what I always thought. I just thought they were a cartoon, so I never looked for Ninja Turtle comics. It wasn't until I was older that I kind of dabbled and found out about the Ninja Turtles, and I never really went back and read them. I learned some of the history about like the Eastman and Laird stuff, and then subsequently the Archie comics that came around that were based on the cartoon. But those I honestly never even really read. That didn't happen until I was much older, in my 20s.
Right.
And that was, I mean, and that I wouldn't even say that was, because I didn't buy the books. I didn't read any of the comics from that or anything. It was just learning the history more of it and learning how it was. And it wasn't until I don't know, a couple years ago, honestly, that I sat down and actually bought the hardcover collections of the original Eastman and Laird comics, that I sat down and read them all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a gigantic mess for me. Ugh.
So nowadays, you've gotten into the point of actually collecting comics again to have a collection
As a
and
collectible,
and as a display piece and whatever else.
Right.
What made you want to start doing that again?
If you had my wife here, she would probably tell you it's just because I'm impulsive. And there's probably a great deal of truth in that. I had read like I said, I had read the hardcovers, and that, I mean, I loved them and everything. I mean, it's a completely different story than what I grew up with Ninja Turtles, and has a lot of similarities to the what year was that? 2003, the 2003 animated series.
Yep.
There's a lot of similarities in what Eastman and Laird were doing with those comics and what they did with that cartoon show. It's weird because honestly, I don't care too much for that cartoon series, which is really strange.
It's I've said this before and I'll say it again. It's not as god awful as everyone assumes it is. It is really cool. It does give a lot of homages to the Eastman and Laird stuff. Recently, actually over the holidays in 2014, the Nicktoon channel was actually rerunning the series for the first time in God knows how long, since it's been on the air when it was with Fox.
Right.
And I sat there, I had to set up a DVR thing, and I'm like, look, I need to watch this again. Sure, I've gone on YouTube and I've seen it, but I even believe now that they have it on their website where you can watch a majority or at least a selection of the episodes.
No, I might sit down, because it's now been, I mean, I remember watching the first couple episodes when it first debuted. It just, so I mean, that's now like 12 years ago. God, we're getting old, Mike. So
yeah, I'll be as of this recording in about 4 weeks. I'll be 35 years old.
Yeah,
Oh God.
Well, you're in the same company as me. I turned 37 at the end of this year. Oh, but anyhow,
37 in a row?
Huh?
Nothing. Never mind.
So I might go back and rewatch it. I don't know. They might be. I don't think they're on Netflix. I'm gonna have to.
No, they're not on Netflix. I think it's exclusive to the Nickelodeon website. I'll find it for you.
Yeah, I'll probably sit down and watch some of it, but. I mean, I do know that, it paid, closer attention to those original comics. Because the original cartoons from the 80s were disgustingly different from the comic books. The new Nick series is a little bit closer as well, but still kid-friendly, I suppose. I don't know. So it was... but with the comics, I never got into them. So as I got older here, obviously I started collecting things more. And it was, Ninja Turtles have always been a huge part of my life growing up. I say this even probably more than Transformers were. In the fact that Transformers were a little bit more expensive of toys to buy when I was a kid. And Ninja Turtles weren't. I mean, now, granted, you're talking the difference between, like $8 and $4. But, my parents didn't have a shit ton of money. So it wasn't anything that I couldn't. A lot of my Transformers were hand-me-downs, or I found at garage sales or flea markets or things like that. So my newest toys were always Ninja Turtle figures. So, I mean, Ninja Turtles was absolutely huge as I was growing up. And now as an adult, I was like, I wouldn't mind having some of those old comics. Even though I never read them, I never had them. It'd be nice to have them as part of a collection. I mean, I have so much other stuff that's, collectible. Might as well have those. I mean, I've already read them. So one day I went online and I started looking. And I have a friend of mine that's local here that was a heavy comic dealer in the 90s, and he has connections all over the place. I mean, he's got some of the comics in his collection make me sick. I mean, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he's got like an Action Comics somewhere hiding, Action Comics #1 somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised.
Or an Amazing Fantasy 15.
the ones that I mean, it's like he's got the first appearance of Wolverine, and I mean, all these really heavy duty expensive comics. I mean, he's got them, and he's got connections, so he gets them for good deals. And I was talking to him, like, you know what, I want to get some of these. I don't want to get a lot. I'm like, I want to get like the first 5 issues of the old Eastman and Laird stuff. Why the first 5? I don't know why I picked the first 5. The first 4 are because they're back in the day they had like 2 colors, and that was it. Or for the covers. And then so it's like issue #1 has red and black. Issue #2 is blue and white and black, I guess. 3, I don't remember what 3 is. And I don't remember what 4 is, but but it's all like they couldn't afford colors. That's why the comics are black and white themselves. So Eastman and Laird did this from their little apartment, so they couldn't afford to do this. The original run of Ninja Turtle, like issue #1, they only made 3,000 copies, and that was done because they borrowed money from, I don't remember which one it was. It was either Eastman or Laird's uncle. They borrowed money from him to get them printed, and those sold out. Second run, they did like 9,000 or something like that, and they were making money, but it wasn't a heck of a lot, so they couldn't put the color in the covers. And I wanted to get issue #5, because that was the first full color cover that they were able to afford. The inside was still black and white, but the covers were all now in color from that point on. And so that's why I decided to go the first 5. And then within those first 5, or the first year or whatever, they also did the micro series where it was one-shots of Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Leonardo. And they were stories specific to those characters. And so those are the ones that I decided to get. So it's like 9 of those, and that's it. And now, those are the only ones that I collected, and I got those graded because I'm also one of those people that when I buy my toys, I like them being as new and as perfect as possible. So I don't like buying a lot of vintage figures like Transformers or anything because they've been played with, they're loose, they're floppy. So in order to get them, I have to buy ones that are mint and sealed box, never been opened. And if you ever try buying a mint and sealed box, never been opened Optimus Prime, it's not cheap. So
No,
I'm perfectly content with buying an encore or a reissue or whatever the case may be. It's the same figure, it's the same mold. Usually there's some kind of improvements, and it's a tight, brand new figure. I'm perfectly fine with that. But with the Ninja Turtle ones, and I know IDW recently released all those like one-shots and things like that, but they're not the originals. And
no, they're not the originals, but for someone that may, you said it yourself. As a kid, you were on, your family was on a tight budget.
Sure.
Someone that is on a tight budget, having
absolutely. They're great. Those are great ways for people to get those. And even to this day, you can walk into Toys R Us, and Playmates have made like comic looking turtles that I reviewed them, and the figures suck. But there's some that come with comics that are reprints from the IDW series of the one shots of the very first time that Raphael met Casey Jones. You can buy that issue from IDW and get the same exact comic essentially that I paid $80 for. You know, I mean, So that's that. And now and honestly, I can tell you that I've already started looking. And here's the other thing. I was talking to my friend who lives locally. He was like, "Let's do this. We'll get him for you. You just got to be patient." And that's like, nope, that's not going to work for me. Patience is not a thing for me. So I went out and I just started looking, and I got all the deals that I could on all the books that I could for the Ninja Turtle ones. The last one that I recently got was a second printing. It's not even the first printing. But the first printing can run for about $15,000, and that's going to be a little bit nuts, especially if you get it. You know, I mean, I want to collect the comic books that are graded like 9.6 to 9.8, which are even more expensive. If I wanted to get a 5, graded #1 of Ninja Turtles, it's considerably less. But if I want to get something that's display worthy, and I'm gonna have it. I have them up on my wall. So I want it to look good. So I settled currently. I'll say currently because I at some point in time hope to get a issue #1 first printing, but I settled for a second printing of issue #1. That's like a 9.6 grade or something. But he just laughs at me because he knows that, and I did that in less than a month. He's like, you need to wait a while. He's like, these things come up every so often. You'll get a good deal, but you got to wait. You got to be patient, and that doesn't work for me. So I want something. I want it right now, and that's unfortunately a huge Achilles heel of mine. And right now I'm getting it because I just got the Matty Collector Unleashed Doomsday, and I'm playing with that, and I'm playing with my Superman figure, and I'm setting this stuff up to do reviews for it. And I'm like, I wonder how much those I know I have them all, but I also know that I read them and they're not in good shape. I mean, I'd be absolutely shocked if I sent one of my books in and if it came back with a grade of an 8. I mean, I'd crap myself if it was that good. But
you have to pay to have it graded, right?
You do. But the thing is, once you grade it, it's locked in. It's put in a slab. It's put in a plastic case.
Right.
It's protected. It's an investment at that point in time. And when you get it graded, there's never any doubt anymore. And that's how much it's worth for the rest of your life. So, yes, it does. And it's not that much. The biggest thing with me, again, I'm not patient. So, I sent out issue #2 of the Ninja Turtles. I bought that ungraded. But it was I got really lucky with it. It was a $200 book that I bought that was not graded. And the guy that I bought it from told me that it was found in a factory with a stack of other ones. And I'm like, it's a factory find. So it probably didn't even get into circulation. So I'm like, that's got to be good shape. So I had him send me a bunch of pictures, and I'm looking, I'm like, this thing looks incredible. So, but the thing that worried me was he wanted to do the deal outside of eBay. He wanted to do it with me sending him a money order. And I'm like, I don't want to send you a money order because I don't know if I'll ever get the book then. So it's like, I don't have any protection. But it ended up working out perfectly fine. He sent me the book. I sent it out to get graded. And to get it express graded and then express back, it ended up costing me like an extra $150.
So, stop.
Yeah.
You spent $350 total.
Correct.
To get Mirage TMNT #2 graded.
Correct. But the hindsight is that book is probably now worth, because it's graded, easily $450 to $500.
Okay.
So I mean, it worked out. Yeah. It worked out for me. Now, I was only wanting to make sure that I got my initial investment back. That was the
Right.
biggest thing that I was concerned about. If I got the book graded and
I
it
would
came
think
back,
so.
well, no, I know. I mean, if I got the book graded back and it was worth at least $200, I would be happy with that. But it graded out pretty good. It ended up grading at a 9.8, which blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. Just because there are factory defects on some of the pages. I mean, because it's a comic book, a lot of times, and a lot of comics have this. And my friend he's like, that's not going to affect the grade. But I was worried that it would. When it's on a printing reel, there are little claw things that grab the paper and move it along the printing press. And sometimes those little claw things dig in and make indents on the paper. And there's like 9 pages on that book that have those little indents, and they're like cut through. They're actually like little cuts through the paper. And I was like, this is going to screw up the grade. I was all upset. I was depressed. Came back. It's not even listed on there. It's not even something that they looked at or cared about. It didn't affect the grading one bit. So I'm like, yes, score. But, but yeah, so now it came back. And like I said, now I'm looking at the Doomsday, and that was the one that was the series comics that I really kind of got into. And now I'm looking at collecting those ones and those are actually considerably cheaper, because that was also a huge thing with comics. Up until that point, it was, they didn't do a lot of third or second printings and third printings and fourth printings and fifth printings. I mean, the Superman series with him dying, they just kept printing. So it's not all that valuable. Number 75, first printing of him, I'm watching an auction right now for like $68. That's graded 9.8. I mean, they're not that valuable, but
yeah, I mean, when it comes to Superman, especially something like that, where DC really pushed the envelope because it was such a huge deal, they wanted everybody in the friggin' world to have this. Like, this isn't like Action Comics #1. This isn't like Amazing Fantasy number 15. This isn't like Batman #1.
This is something ridiculously mass produced.
Right.
So, I mean, they're not that valuable. Now, there are some variants that are a little bit more valuable. There's one that it came with a black plastic sleeve that it's been removed. I mean, and even if that's removed, it doesn't affect the grading, because that actually can, if you left that on the comic, it can damage the comic on the inside. So it's almost better to have that plastic sleeve not on it. But when you would remove it, it was a tombstone with Superman's name on it. And I want to say that it also came with like collector cards. It came with a black armband with the Superman logo on there. There's people out there cutting grass. They're really annoying me now. I don't know if you can hear them, but I can hear them.
Yeah, I can hear them.
Sorry. But so there's some versions of the comic that are a little bit more expensive and more valuable, but that's, those are also a lot more limited.
That's where DC and other publishers, Marvel and that's really where they come in and get the money nowadays, is when they do variant covers, because, a variant I'm trying to think. There was a variant cover, and all as it was, and it was new. I mean, this isn't an old issue. This was like Spider-Man. This was this was a couple of years ago. Superior Spider-Man #4 or something.
Okay.
The variant cover for it was just a white background with the Superior Spider-Man swinging, towards the camera, towards the reader, and it was like $100 for the variant at my comic shop, because they probably got charged 2, 3, I mean, I don't know what it was, but variant covers nowadays are really where the publishers make up their, and some publishers like IDW will throw in a subscription cover. And it'll, like with IDW specifically, most of the time they're either the same price as the regular comic, $3.99, $2.99, whatever it is, or they may be $2, $3, $4 more. But
Well,
which is
comics nowadays, and this is, I don't collect comics now. So my collecting stopped. I don't read them. There's a few that I bought. I mean, I bought the Ninja Turtle Ghostbuster crossover. I still haven't even read it. It's sitting on my desk over here. I mean, I haven't read that yet. I got the autographed Wingblade series from you. And that's like a 4-issue miniseries. I've only read the first 2. It's just I don't have that drive to sit down and read comics. I make the excuse that I don't have time to do it. I have time to do it. I don't have the drive to read them nowadays. Not that the stories are bad. I mean, a lot of people rave about like the new ongoing Transformers stuff, and I mean now that they're bringing in a lot of now that they're making connections with the like the comics and making toys based off of that, like the whole Combiner Wars stuff. We're getting some of the greatest toys, in terms of the generation line in a while. We're getting a Superion, we're getting a Menasor, we're getting all these combiners that are really great figures, and they're coming from being put back into the comics. So I'm not saying that the stories aren't good. I don't have that pull to read them. My catchphrase is just I don't have time, and then that's not that I don't have time. It's just I hate saying it, but it's like I can't be bothered to read a comic book right now. So it's unfortunate. It really is. And that's why I don't mind collecting these old ones, because I don't have to read them. I've already read them. So they just go on I have special mounts for my wall that I just put them on there and I display them. But they're great. I mean, and a lot of people really love them. I just can't get into them. But you have to realize that nowadays, comics really are not selling like they used to. The advent of digital media have really hurt paper publications. I mean, and that's true of newspapers, that's true of magazines, that's true of comic books. It's really a changing landscape in terms of reading. So if these publishers want to kind of keep interest in it, they got to do something different, and that's come out with variant covers, come out with something different that can pull people in and make them want to collect them. And the prices are going to be a little bit higher because they're not making nearly as many books, period. And when you do a limited edition kind of thing, that's even fewer books.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
I mean, most of the variant covers that I see, doesn't matter what publisher it is, but most of them are 1 in 10 or 1 in 25, or like 1 in 25 is kind of rare actually.
Yeah.
But like 1 in 10 is usually the standard. But it's one of those things. I mean, for me, reading comics, because I obviously do a podcast about comics, or else we wouldn't be here.
Sure.
I have slowly, gradually moved to digital because it's easier for me.
Well, that, and it's a huge space saver. You really got to look at it that way as well. I mean, comic books. I have 2 large. I don't even know how big they are. They maybe 3 feet, like 3 foot long boxes, and I have 2 of them, and they're in my closet, and they sit there and they take up a lot of space. So if you are lucky and you want to collect, or if you're lucky and you have the space that you can have them, great. But a lot of us aren't. So keeping them on a digital kind of media, a tablet or iPhone or whatever the case may be, it's a big space saver. So,
and I think for me, and I might
you're
have
protected in that.
Well, kind of, sorta.
Well, I mean, you don't have to worry about space too much.
Well, yeah,
I mean, they're not valuable if you keep them on a digital media. There's no value to it.
No. But what I'm saying is, yes, you are kind of protected, but at the same time, you're kind of not, unless the publisher has allowed. Comixology last year, Comixology.com struck up a deal with several publishers where they would allow PDF or CBZ backups.
Okay.
Because what if Comixology.com servers go down? Well, and this has happened to several people that actually listen to this show. Our buddy Scanner51 at Scanner51 on Twitter had told me that he lost about $400 worth of comics. He got most of it back, but purchasing $400 worth of digital comics over time, he lost a lot of his comics because something happened to Comixology's servers. Sure. So that's the thing. It's like
that's true of it. That's true of anything. But I mean,
yeah.
I mean, the money that he lost is the money that he paid.
Well, true.
It's not. There's not an increase in value. You know, I mean, if I handed you, I mean, it wouldn't ever happen. But say back in 1992, they had a digital version of The Death of Superman and a print version of The Death of Superman. The digital version is probably not. I would almost guarantee you not going to fluctuate in value.
Oh no!
So that's what I'm saying. So if you lose your comic collection on that, you're only out the money that you paid.
Right, you know, but I mean, the man is still out. Those
sure.
You know,
oh, absolutely.
For me, I always like, I'll sit here and I'll buy, a certain series, or I'll buy a couple of trade paperbacks on Comixology, but I might not get to them as far as reviewing them here in the pull bag until 2, 3, 4, 6 months down the road. But at the time when they come out, I'm like, okay, well, I have the money to get this. Let me go ahead and get it. It's just kind of nice now. And I wish DC and Marvel would jump on this bandwagon, because it makes no matter to them, honestly. They're already getting their money. It makes no matter to them if the person that bought the thing has a backup of it. Sure. I mean, you already paid them. So, with the digital, one of the reasons, and I think I've said this on the show before, I could be wrong, I don't know, I have a horrible memory, almost being 35 years old. Old man-itis, that's what it is, old man-itis. I switched to digital because I found myself, like, even though I really enjoyed reading print comics, I found myself, after going to the comic shop, coming home, I'm sitting here reading, every week 3 or 4 different single issue comics, and by the third issue, whatever it is, that doesn't matter what it is. I'm like, okay, I'm holding this here, and I'm either my head's falling back on the chair, or I'm almost tipping over for like. There was when we did our first annual Punisher month, and it was only because of the heft of the book. I had bought was it Punisher Max? Oh God, what was it? It was Welcome Back Frank.
Okay. And
Welcome Back Frank, the trade paperback that I bought, was like all 12 issues in one giant book. It was and I'm sitting here holding this. I'm like, oh my God, after 6 of these issues, I'm getting carpal tunnel from holding this thing. And then even though I'm reading the story as I'm going along and really enjoying what I'm reading, at the same time, at one point, I literally tipped over, the book fell out of my hand, and I almost fell asleep because I'm so tired of just sitting there. So one of the reasons why I love digital comics, specifically, again, Comixology.com, is because they have a technology there called guided view. So it's basically like reading a comic book in storyboard form, and it draws your eye. I'll have to show it to you off air, but it draws your eye to whatever panel it is, and it gets to zoom in on a panel and zoom out on panels and everything else, and it's so cool. Yeah, for me, I've said this before. People have heard Joe Reed and I do X number. I don't even know how many IDW TMNT coverages we've done now, but we're up to current storyline at this point. The IDW Turtles was my first experience with Turtles in comics. Like you, I thought, 87. It started as a cartoon. Right. And then later I found out about, the Mirage and all this and all that. And it's not that I don't want to go back and read the Mirage comics. I may eventually do that. I don't know. But I just know that there are only certain things I like in black and white. Three Stooges, the Thin Man movies, stuff like that. Yeah. And I remember being so skeptical of the current IDW ongoing when I open the book and I see, oh no, all 4 turtles are all 4 turtles are wearing red bandanas.
Yeah.
No. But Joe assured me, and really, it came true where He's like, it's all right, don't worry about it, it's for a reason, and it really was. And I gotta say, what Tom Waltz, and I've said this before on this podcast, what Tom Waltz, Bobby Curnow, and Kevin Eastman are doing. Tom Waltz is the main writer, Curnow is the editor, but he also has a couple of story credits here and there, and obviously Eastman is Eastman.
Right.
But Waltz as the main writer, the IDW series pays so much homage to every aspect of TMNT. It is just so damn good. Every issue I read leaves me with a smile on my face after I read it. It really, really does. It's just so good. All right. Is there anything else you would like to bring up about your comic experience?
I don't know. If anybody has Death of Superman comics and wants to sell them to me on the cheap, I'll buy them from you.
Okay, then.
That's about it.
Okay, this unsolicited solicitation from Optibotimus. Yeah. All right, folks. Where can the people find you online if they would like to interact with you, sir, or watch your videos?
My stuff. Best place to get me would probably be social media. So Twitter, twitter.com/Optibotimus, or Facebook at facebook.com/TeamBotimus. There's obviously my YouTube channel, but I get a billion messages there, so I probably am not going to be able to interact with anybody there. But there's youtube.com/Optibotimus.
And there's also OptibotimusReviews.com.
And that website. Yeah, I always forget that I have a website. Yeah, OptibotimusReviews.com.
Yeah. All right, folks. As I said at the beginning of this episode, next time around you're going to hear Adas Baron and I talk about He-Man the Masters Universe issues 13 to 19. So stop it. So that's what's going to go on there. Make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time.
Peace!
Oh, little song, little dance, Batman's head on a lance.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at GeekCastRadio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.